In the Middle Ages, madness was not rare. It was everywhere. It walked openly through villages, whispered inside homes, and screamed behind locked doors. The world itself was enough to break the mind, and there was no understanding of how to heal what shattered. Life unfolded under constant pressure. Hunger gnawed at the body. Disease stalked every street. Death arrived without warning and stayed without mercy. Fear was not an emotion, but a permanent condition. In such a world, sanity was fragile, and many lost it quietly, without anyone noticing. Mental illness had no name. There were no diagnoses, no explanations rooted in science. Strange behavior was not seen as sickness, but as possession, punishment, or moral failure. A person who spoke to unseen figures or laughed at nothing was not ill, they were cursed. Voices were believed to be demons. Visions were signs of hell opening its eyes. Seizures were interpreted as divine judgment or infernal control. The mind was a battlefield between God and the devil, and the afflicted were seen as hosts, not victims. Those who suffered were feared. Families hid them when possible, locking them in cellars or barns. When secrecy failed, the community intervened. The mad were driven from villages, beaten in public, or handed to the church to be dealt with through prayer and punishment. Chains replaced care. Iron collars fastened around necks and wrists. People were restrained not to protect them, but to protect others from the discomfort of witnessing madness. Darkness, isolation, and silence were considered cures. Monasteries and early hospitals offered little relief. These places were not centers of healing, but warehouses of suffering. The mad were kept alongside the sick, the dying, and the unwanted filth covered the floors. Screams echoed through stone corridors. There was no separation between body and mind. Pain was treated with more pain. Religious rituals dominated treatment. Exorcisms were performed violently. Priests shouted prayers into terrified faces. Holy water was forced down throats. Fasting weakened already fragile bodies. When madness persisted, it was taken as proof of deeper corruption. Some were paraded through towns as warnings. Madness became spectacle. People stared, mocked, and threw stones. Fear turned into cruelty. Compassion faded quickly when survival itself felt uncertain. War fed madness endlessly. Soldiers returned broken in mind and spirit. They woke screaming, haunted by memories of blood and fire. There was no language for trauma. Night terrors were dismissed as weakness. Those who could no longer fight were discarded, left to beg or starve. Women were especially vulnerable. Grief, depression, or rebellion were labeled hysteria or witchcraft. A woman who spoke too loudly, wept too often, or refused obedience risked accusation. Madness and heresy blended easily, and many paid with their lives. Witch trials devoured the mentally ill. Confusion became guilt. Hallucinations became confessions. Under torture, the broken mind said whatever was demanded. Madness was not protected. It was condemned. Children were not spared. Orphans who spoke to imaginary figures or showed unusual behavior were beaten or abandoned. Developmental disorders were misunderstood as evil. Innocence offered no shield. Even the healthy lived on the edge. Constant fear, religious terror, and unrelenting hardship eroded stability. Grief piled upon grief. Loss followed loss. There was no time to process pain. Minds cracked under the weight. Loneliness deepened the damage. Community bonds weakened as fear spread. Trust disappeared. People avoided those who suffered, believing madness contagious. Isolation finished what hunger and fear began. Death often arrived quietly for the mad. Some starved in chains, others froze in locked rooms. Many vanished without record. Their stories were not written, their names were not remembered. Yet madness was not separate from society. It was woven into daily life. Everyone lived close to the breaking point. Sanity was temporary. The line between the sane and the mad was thin and easily crossed. In the Middle Ages, there was no mercy for the broken mind, only fear, punishment, and silence. Healing was not the goal. Control was. To lose one's mind was to lose one's humanity. The mad were no longer people. They were warnings of what awaited anyone who fell too far behind survival. In such a world, sanity was not strength, it was luck. If this is the kind of history you want to hear, subscribe to Medieval Decay. Do you think you would have kept your sanity in the Middle Ages? Or would the world have broken you? Tell us in the comments.